So this here is my new Pentair FNS Plus DE filter. This is gonna go and serve our in-ground pool, about 25,000 gallon pool. I'm gonna go ahead and show you the features around this and how to get it installed. So this DE filter is a 60 square foot filter. There's other smaller versions of this filter, but when it comes to filtration in your pool, generally the larger the filter, the better. That's gonna ensure that you're getting maximum flow rate through the filter. The other thing with DE filters, they're known to be pretty much the best filtration out there when it comes to pool filters. There's a couple other styles, cartridge filters, sand filters. Those don't filter out nearly down to the size that DE filters do. All right, so this DE filter comes with a couple additional parts here. You've got a manual air relief valve, and then you've got a pressure gauge that will be installed, and obviously you got instructions. Looking closer at this FNS Plus filter here, this is a fiberglass housing here. You've got your 2-inch inlet and outlet ports. You've got a nice band clamp that goes around this. And I like these clamps because they're a lot more easier to take the lid off if you've got to do a manual cleaning of your filter. There's some other types of filters where you're dealing with 15 or 16 nuts and bolts. That's much more of a pain than just releasing this clamp here. On the top of the unit, we've got our threaded port. This is for that relief valve, and the pressure gauge will install on top of that relief valve. And here's a look at the base of the unit. You've got nice solid resin material down here. So this is an 1.5 inch bottom drain valve here. You can put a wrench on it, loosen it up, and pull it out if you need to drain out your filter. And this unit is pretty much the size of a water softener here. This is the FNS Plus 60, so this is a large filter size. It stands at about 47 inches tall and right around 20 inches in diameter. So it's a pretty beefy unit here. And with this large FNS Plus 60 square foot filter here, it can actually allow up to 150 gallons per minute to flow through here. So that's a lot of output that should accommodate most pool pumps. So we're gonna go ahead and open up the filter here. And with the clamp mechanism, there's essentially 4 main parts to it. You've got your nut right here, you've got a large washer, you've got a spring, and then you've got a small washer. So those 4 components are what's used to keep the clamp in place. And what's kind of neat is with the spring here, it actually will give you indication as to when you've tightened it enough. You can see right here, the coils on the spring are touching each other very close together. That's what you want. That shows that you have tightened it adequately. As we loosen this with our adjustable wrench here, we're going to see the coil start to separate a little bit. So looking closer now, we can see that the coil has started to separate here. So it's definitely loosening up. And we're gonna just continue unthreading the bolts so that we can take the whole assembly off and remove the clamp. So there it is, small washer. We got our spring coil. We've got our large washer, and then we've got our barrel nut here. You can see we've got our clamp bolt here. Clamp can just slide right off. And with there not really being any handles here, just kind of gotta grip it, lift up. So you can see here is the filter system inside the DE filter. And so this mesh, this provides 60 square foot of filtration area here. And this right up here, this is the standpipe where the water is gonna get returned back down through your outlet here, back to the pool. So essentially how this works is you've got your inlet down here, coming from the pump. It's going to send the essentially dirty water into the filter. It's going to go through the 60 square foot mesh here and then get returned back in a clean state through the standpipe. And so when you're adding your DE powder, essentially what you're doing is you're coating this membrane here, this mesh, and that's what gets you the really fine filtration that makes the DE filter so great at keeping the water. Another thing you can see, there's this large rubberized O-ring that goes around the circumference of the base of the filter here. And that's important because then when you go ahead and reinstall the lid, you're going to get a nice good seal here that'll prevent leakage when you're running your filter. And just touching this a little bit, I can feel that it's already been lubricated, but otherwise that's something that periodically you may have to just apply a little bit of lubricant on here, keep it nice and fresh. So as far as reinstalling the filter, it's pretty much as simple as it was to take it off. You just go ahead, slide the lid back on, make sure that it's mated up well with the lower half and the O-ring that sits in between. Alright, so next we're going to get this clamp put back on, and this thing definitely feels nice and solid. Metal construction clamp here. We'll just slide that bolt right like that. Now we're going to lock our clamp in place. We'll first put the small washer in place. And then we've got our T-nut here that we will thread on. So we've got it hand tightened so far. And as we continue to tighten this, the clamp is drawing closer and closer together to really hold the top and bottom components together. So again, really what we're looking for here as we tighten down, we're looking for the spring coils to be touching each other where you can't see between them. Alright, we've got it nice and cranked down. You can see there's no gap anymore between those spring coils. Our clamp is on nice and tight. So the process of removing this clamp, opening up the filter, and getting access to the internals really only takes a couple minutes. Very simple process. I really like the design of this clamp system here. Way better than my old DE filter where I had 15 bolts that I had to undo, and pretty much where I'd have to dedicate an hour or two of my time just to clean the filter. So this is our old DE filter here that we're going to be replacing. It's had a good run of around 20 years. But we're looking forward to getting our new Pentair filter installed. So we just got our new DE filter set out here on our pump pad. And the next step is going to be to plumb this over to our pump down here and back on the return side here. So I've got a little bit of plumbing work to do. A couple different options in terms of how you want to plumb this. You can use a slide valve, a multi-port valve, or just standard bulkhead fittings to go from your pump to your return. Alright, so getting our filter installed was super simple. All you have to do is a little bit of plumbing work, which really isn't any different than any other PVC plumbing in the house. So we've screwed the pressure gauge into our relief valve up here, put a little Teflon tape on the threads, and then we just are going to screw it on the top of the filter here. Looking closer at the gauge here, it's pretty convenient. They've got a little sliding dial here where you can kind of figure out and set your baseline. So once you start your pool up, you'll know what your filter pressure is when it's clean. And then you would just kind of set the start arrow to that pressure. So in our case, if we were at around 15 psi when we're clean, then we'd have a good marker here at around 25, 26 psi when we need to clean the filter. So very convenient. And given our past experience with other DE filters, we're confident that this DE filter is going to do the job and keep our pool nice and crystal clear throughout the pool season here.